Welcome to Kristina's Corner. I'm here today with Kyle from Wax Museum Podcast. Welcome, Kyle, and thanks so much for sitting down with me.
Hey, Kristina, I appreciate you having me on today. Looking forward to it.
Of course. So I just wanted to talk to you as a hobby content creator about what it is like to be a prominent hobby content creator today.
Yeah, I think that's a good question, and it's something we don't get to talk about a lot as content creators, I guess. I would say, it is a different form of discipline. First off, it's an honor. Like I appreciate the fact that I can create content and that people can choose to consume, and it doesn't mean it's for everyone. I understand that. I don't listen to every show that's out there either. For me, though, like I said, it's a different form of discipline because it involves a different level of planning. And that's brought kind of something, I've always been a planner in my life, but this is another element that I kind of work in along with my job and some other things. So like I have a schedule that to try and prevent it from stressing me out. And I say that because I love producing hobby content. I love talking about cards. But if I do so much of that or don't plan it accordingly and it gets in the way of my real life and my priorities, it stresses me out. And that's not stress that anyone else puts on me. That's stress that I put on myself. So, there have been weeks where I don't have a topic I like and I'm stressed and I have to kind of back up and say, wait a second, this wasn't why I started this. No one's putting this pressure on me. I chose this myself. So I would say a typical, and I'd love to hear after this kind of the House of Jordan's perspective too, and Kristina's Corner, the same thing. Typically on Wednesday night, I will publish whatever episode I've been working on. Thursday morning, I promote it. I try and promote and interact with people for a couple of days. I field any messages and whatnot. Sunday and Monday, I'm figuring out a new topic already. I can't just think about the old episode. I got to look forward. I'm figuring out a rough outline in my head. Tuesday, I'm piecing the script together because I do use a script. I know not everyone does. It benefits some people, it doesn't others. I'm a planner. I like to have a script. Doesn't mean I follow it all the time, but it's there in case I need it because I can veer off and go into other places. Wednesday, I finalize that and I record. And this is kind of different if I'm recording with someone else, but that gives you a rough idea. And, I'd like people to know that everything, I speak for myself, but probably other content creators too. Everything that goes into it is very intentional because I value the audience and I value the process. How about you guys? Is that kind of where you go with it too?
Yeah. So with House of Jordans, it's a little different because there's three of us. Right. So previously, like we had some, like we would jump around when we would record, and we've been really regimented lately. And so we always record on Wednesday nights, pretty late, 10 p.m. Pacific time. So, and if anyone who watches House of Jordans knows, we talk a lot. So there are times that we don't finish recording until like midnight because sometimes we start late as well. So Wednesday nights is a late night. And then Thursday is spent going through the podcast, adding the video component. Friday or Thursday night, we upload as well. We upload the night before, like right at midnight, usually on Thursday. So Friday morning, we go live with our audio version. And then Saturday night, as you know, because you've been on, we have the premiere on YouTube with the video component. And that's really fun. And then like Sunday, we've been doing a separate show regarding The Last Dance. So we do a recap of that. Monday through Wednesday, we're sending messages back and forth to each other, adding topics to a spread, like a Google Drive, and defining what we want to talk about and what's current in the hobby. If something's happening, does it take precedence over something that we had previously decided we were going to talk about? And we really keep that going. And then you add in Kristina's Corner. And so I'm recording this like on those off days right now, or like those planning days. And I can see the stress like is very easy to come by. If you don't have that all planned out and laid out of like, this is when things happen. So I totally get that. And I think it's really wise to remind yourself as a content creator, like this is a hobby, like this is your passion project. It should be something you love to do and want to do, instead of like, oh no, I have to put out a show, or oh no, like I scheduled too many things for myself this week. So I totally understand that. And it's great advice for anyone out there listening. And like, just organization is key, and like remembering that we're here to have fun. And I think that's the main objective with Kristina's Corner, at least, like talking to different people in the hobby and sharing the enjoyment of the hobby and of sports cards with each other and with the listeners.
Yeah, that's awesome. One thing I guess I learned early on, and I can't say I'm always great about it, is I need to have a backup script, like a backup episode, which is hard. And I would think it would be especially hard for you guys. You guys do more current, in the moment things, I think, than I do, where I can just say like, hey, not that you don't do this, but I could just say, hey, I'm going to talk about 1961 Fleer today. And that's probably not going to change in 4 months. So I can kind of have that stored up if I need it, or a conversation stored up with someone if I need it. I don't always do, but I found that kind of helps me alleviate some of those pressures too, just knowing that I have that if I need it or if something happens.
Yeah, in the like digital marketing world, excuse me, in the digital marketing world, that's called green content. It's content you can like put in a folder and then pull out when you don't have other content to like to post or to use. So I like that idea. I know that. So for episode 29 for House of Jordans, for example, Chris is in the middle of finals. It's his last year of law school, and there's extra pressure on that because it's last year of law school. Usually we don't record when he's in those 2 weeks of finals studying and taking. Right. And because of our new schedule, we have to release, well, we don't have to, but we would like to release an episode. So episode 29 of House of Jordans is, or was, an interview that I did with Tyson Beck and some information about the Topps Project 2020. And I mean, Tyson Beck is a legend, so it was pretty current and easy to pop him in as an episode.
It's definitely relevant.
Yeah. But we kind of had to strategize, like, how are we going to like cover that week where schedules are tight and one of the three of us like really just can't devote that week to prep, record, and then post-production.
Right. And I think that says a lot about the three of you, that you obviously care about the listener and care about what you built with them. And you're plugging in something that's meaningful ahead of time when you know you aren't going to be there.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we talk just to hear ourselves talk sometimes, but at the end of the day, like, we release it for our listeners, and we care about our listeners greatly. So I think that like, we didn't want to just cancel.
Right.
the episode for that week. And we followed your role, actually, of releasing material every week on a schedule. And I think listeners have come accustomed to it, and we didn't want to leave anyone kind of like wondering, like, oh, are they on the, like, are they going to go back to revert back
are
to
you guys okay?
Yeah. Or like, are you guys okay? Like, is everyone healthy, especially during this time? So we didn't want to do that to anyone. So yeah, I mean, the fact that I got an interview with Tyson Beck, I was just like totally stoked
That's awesome.
about.
Yeah. Because that's right. The art, like, that's your segment. That's right down. That's Kristina's corner. That's perfect.
Yeah. Which we'll get into your PC and the art of in a little while, and I'm very excited to do that. But so I wanted to ask you what role you and other hobby content creators have in the hobby.
It's a good question. I think it's different for everyone. I think we have the responsibility to present the different perspectives of the hobby. And I say that knowing that the people that listen to my show, they know there are perspectives I don't like. And I'm vocal about it sometimes. And, that's just part of who I am. But at the end of the day, I think creators need to stand behind their hobby perspective and be able to explain why. As much as I, might complain about other people, if every show out there sounded the same, it would be awful. If every show was my show, it would be awful. So we need that contrast, and I think that's kind of the role that everyone plays. Everyone has a different personality, and they see things differently. They have different background, and they have that's their role, to present that authentically.
For sure. And then I know you touched on the responsibility to present the different perspectives of the hobby. Are there any other responsibilities that a content creator needs to take into consideration?
Yeah, I think so. I think we have the responsibility to present information authentically, the good and the bad. I think we have the responsibility to present information as accurately as possible. And that doesn't mean that people are purposely trying to mislead people or give wrong information. But I think it happens. There have been times where it's like, well, I don't remember quite what happened in 1992. Let me just, talk about, Larry Johnson or whatever and gloss over it. Well, no, I can't do that. I reach out to my friends and I say, hey, tell me what happened in 1992. Here's what I have. What am I missing? So, I don't like telling my listeners, I can't speak for everyone else. I don't like telling my listeners, I don't know though. And it's not a pride thing. So much as, my show isn't live. So there's no need for me to just say, oh, I don't know, and move on. I have the time, and hopefully I've scheduled it. We talked about that earlier. I have the time to step back and say, okay, maybe I need to research this a little bit more than I thought. And then also I think we have a responsibility to avoid fluff content. Even at a time like right now where the sport as a whole is shut down, I'm trying to find engaging content that's relevant and will help people take their minds off all the weird stuff that's happening at the same time. But at the end of the day, though, I'm going to create a show that I like. I'm not going to talk about things just because a lot of people have asked to hear about them. I might, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to. Before I started creating content on my own, first off, there wasn't a lot of shows out. I know you guys were out, and I picked your guys' House of Jordan's brains a lot. Like, hey, how'd you do this? Hey, where do I get a mic? Like, just goofy stuff that, looking back is funny to me now. But I would watch or listen to some of the other stuff out there and say, oh, no, I wouldn't have done it that way. And sometimes I think I reached out to people and told them that, which is, looking back, I wish I hadn't done that. But I realize now that's their show. And that's why I started my own, because at the time there wasn't a show that was shaped specifically how I wanted it to be. So I just made one myself. Is that kind of the same vein as you guys? Well, even this show that we're on right now, I would assume that kind of branched off in the same fashion.
Yeah. As I think everyone knows, I'm a huge fan of cards for their art significance. And that's what really inspired me to have my own segment on House of Jordans and focus on that. And then it kind of just like steamrolled into, well, there's not enough time every week to talk about it and dive into it the way I would like to. So like, how can I do this? So it became, well, like I could do a spin-off, like separate show. And that's how Kristina's Corner kind of developed. Like I could no longer be contained within the House of Jordans and cover everything I wanted to. And part of that was talking to different hobby, I call you guys hobby stars. So not just artists, but hobby stars, and talk to people and interview them. Kind of, I don't want to say like, it's not like, I don't, my head's not that big that I'm like, oh, it's a 60-minute style of like hobby content, right. But like interviews. And I wanted to get to know the people behind the artistry and behind the different content creators that we have out there. And I didn't see that happening. Maybe I've missed it yet. I haven't seen it really happening on the hobby.
Yeah, network. I think there's definitely a void.
Yeah, so I just thought it would be a great opportunity for everyone to learn about like you as Kyle and what you collect and what you think about when you create your show, instead of like learn about Wax Museum podcast. Because right. If you want to learn about that, you should go listen to the podcast. Like there's so much great content, and like let you define who you are as content through your show. You don't right. need an avenue with me to do that. But I want to get to know the person behind the microphone. So I want to talk to Kyle, and I want to talk to the artist behind the design. So I talk to Tyson or Blake Jameson. And that's really my goal with Kristina's Corner.
Yeah, I know the latest episode I was listening to this week, I think Brian jumped in. Brian was giving me some art facts, and I was on my walk while I was listening to it. I'm thinking, no, hold on, Brian. This is not Brian's Corner.
No.
But then you reclaimed your title as the art expert there, so I appreciate that.
I don't know if I'd say expert, but thank you. Yeah, I told him he got to stay in his lane.
Yeah, this is not yours, Brian.
Yeah, he was reading the description from Beckett and like the Beckett magazine from about the Jordan card, that Warp Speed, and like he was just reading it, and he was like, I wanted to read it so that we could compare it to what you would say. And I was like, then you should have let me go and then said, well, this is what Beckett has to say. So,
well, it sounded like a legitimate art critique, because a lot of the Beckett stuff is very cut and dry.
Yeah.
Like there is parallel to this. It's this, it's this. This one kind of threw me for a loop because it sounded a little more eloquent than that.
I think the author of that like really liked Warp Speed, so they wanted to give it an extra boost.
It's a nice looking card.
It is. It's a very cool looking card. But yeah, so that's really what Kristina's Corner started out as. House of Jordans started as like a market analysis of the Jordan market. And I freely admit, like, I was kind of like, it was Chris and Brian were like, we're going to start a podcast, because the three of us had been spending a lot of nights just talking about cards. And they were like, we should record this because other people might want to hear these conversations. And I was like, I think I'll let you two do that. Like, so the first episode, I was actually sitting on the couch and they were at the kitchen table, and we set up the microphone so that I'm like laying on the couch, like I'm not laying, but like I'm like relaxing on the couch, like across the room. And they're sitting at the table, like super into it and talking about these 5 Jordan cards in the market. And I fell asleep during the portion where they were talking about the 5 Jordan cards.
And here we are, what, 2 years, a year and a half later, and you're hosting your own spinoff that you initiated. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, I've become much more involved, obviously, with House of Jordan.
Right.
But I'm interested in the numbers, but to hear people talk about numbers, just like, yeah, it's not my thing. So I like to look at the numbers.
I'm with you. I tell people, stop asking me about market stuff. Not that I hate it. It's just not my thing. Yeah. So I'm with you. It kind of, and not the market. I guess all the market stuff kind of blends together for me sometimes. It's not that it's bad. I'm just like, tell me about, Topps Total. Tell me about something else. Tell me about gum and packs, right? Yeah,
I understand. But yeah, so those are the 2 stories about House of Jordans and Kristina's Corner and how we came to be. And what was it that drove you to create Wax Museum specifically?
I guess I would like to call myself, I don't know if it's accurate. I'd like to call myself a basketball and a card historian. I still have a long way to go. That's probably insulting to real historians, but
I don't think so.
I didn't feel like there was content out there that adequately covered the history in the way that I want to see it, sometimes in a linear fashion. I felt like a lot of the pieces were out there. I wanted to try and put it together a little bit more. And, sometimes that's interviews, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just me. And, I enjoy both. And it's definitely challenged me. But, I would say I wanted to see the history represented a little bit more.
Yeah, I love history. Like, I'm a huge history buff. Like, all I read are like biographies and like nonfiction about history. So I love that about Wax Museum because it is what the name says. Like, it's literally like museum quality information about sports cards. And
right.
Like, I'm a huge fan of your show, which I know you know. But yeah, I was very excited to get you on the Kristina's Corner show.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's fun. I was looking forward to it, and I'm enjoying it right now.
Sweet. Well, if that changes, just let me know, and we'll get to the fun part. So, talking about fun parts of the hobby and the historic aspect that you've created, maybe you want to share a little bit about your RPA trackers.
Yeah, I'd love to. So, I would say this was probably around the summer of 2019. It's been about a year now. There was a lot. There are a lot of shenanigans that go on with RPA cards, and it's unfortunate. But a lot of it has already happened, so we can't undo that history. Just in chronicling history in general, basketball card history is just scattered on the internet. There's not one central hub for it. That was kind of another part of forming the show, is I wanted to centralize it as much as possible. So since RPAs really became a big deal in the hobby, I mean, you can even go back to the early SPX cards, which were just jersey autographs, but those have been, a really big deal. Panini introduced National Treasures to basketball in the 2009 season. And it became an even bigger deal, and it's grown since then. Steph Curry wasn't huge then, but all of this has grown since then, and we've seen the big players. We've seen Anthony Davis, Kawhi Leonard, and so on. So there were a lot of unfortunate things that were happening to these cards, and I would see people all the time say, yeah, if only the manufacturers would step up and create this history of these cards or pictures of these cards so we knew what was going on. And I found myself in that camp at times too. And I don't even own, I think the last RPA I bought was $10. And some of the RPAs that are talking about here, we'll just say there's a lot more zeros on the end.
I wish I could get an RPA for $10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tyler, if you're into Tyler Hansbrough and you're patient enough, now that he's been out of the league long enough, you can get it for $10. That's what people ask me. Why do you collect Jeff Foster? There you go. I want nice cards for cheap, right? So I found myself in that camp too, where I'm saying, hey, why can't somebody track these? Well, at some point I just said, this is stupid. If I'm going to ask for somebody to do it and I can do it, and I'm a teacher, so I have the summer off, right? So I kind of made that my project, and that was my way. I wanted to give back to the hobby because the hobby I feel like the hobby has given me so much. And fitting in with your theme of art, I love RPAs, even though I don't own a lot of the big ones, because each piece is different. Each patch piece is like a piece of art. And here we had people altering that. And, I've had to inform some people like, hey, your patch has been switched out. I'm so sorry, and I can see that, it's bad news for them. So I thought, well, what if there was some way that I could prevent that from happening, or at least prevent them from purchasing one that was already altered? So I created a tracker online, and if we want to share the link, I'll have to share it later because it's a free URL, so it's way too long for me to remember.
You gotta make a tiny URL for it, Kyle.
I know. I need to step up my game.
That way you could just say it's at tiny.
I think the last time somebody asked me can I find this, I suggested they Google it, which was a horrible answer. I don't do a very good job of promoting that. So I went and I tracked some of the bigger names, not all of them. I'm not tracking LeBron. I'm not even approaching that. But I started off with Steph Curry, Anthony Davis, Kawhi Leonard, and Luka. It's grown a little bit since then. I've added Kevin Durant. I have added Trae Young. I believe those are the only ones I'm tracking right now. But all I want to do is to just get pictures of these cards as the earliest picture I can, and just show, hey, here's the earliest version of this that I know. Note any times that I see that it's been graded again. Hey, this graded a BGS 9 twice. Well, what does that tell someone? If they purchase that card and they think that they're going to be able to bump it up to a 9.5, history tells them what? Probably not. And that will save them that trouble of that process. So I'm trying to help people out in that way as well. Also, I know sometimes sellers, it seems like the worst pictures on eBay are like the most expensive cards. So if I have a picture of a scratch on a surface and I can provide that to somebody, I try and do that. Not to bring the value of a card down, but just to help people know what they're buying. Another thing I do want to add real quick is that my trackers aren't perfect. So I don't want people to think like, oh, everything's good on here. I'm good to make this purchase. Please do your own research. It's just a guide. I'll tell you what I know. I can't guarantee another picture's not going to emerge out of nowhere because people have, personal pictures that they've never uploaded somewhere or never shared with me. But at least you can use my trackers as a starting point. I've tried to share it with the grading companies as well because they graded altered patches before and after, and all they would have to do is Google a serial number and know that something was up. So I've, tried to say, hey, here, I'll make it even easier for you. Here's how you can provide your service better for customers. Here's my tracker. I'd like to think they're receptive to it. PSA just blocked me on Twitter, so I don't know, who knows if they're all that interested in it or using it, but at least it's out there for them.
Yeah. I will admit that I have an RPA. And
you do have an RPA. It's much nicer than a Tyler Hansbrough RPA.
Thank you. And I graded it more than once to try and bump it. And
did you self-report that information?
What?
Did you self-report that information?
I did not.
You did not.
It's never going to be sold though, Kyle. Like that thing is never going to hit the market. So you don't have to worry.
A lot of people tell me that
to be buried with me.
I hate to dig into old wounds, but the orange Luca was never going anywhere either, right? Where is that orange Luca? It was not in the house. Not in the house I just saw on Instagram not too long ago.
It helped to fund the gold.
It did. And I'm jealous of that.
Yeah. So it's never like there's nothing better than the RPA that the RPA will fund, unless somehow we like get a green, and then I will make sure to self-disclose before it's sold. Okay. How's that?
No, I don't want to guilt anyone into self-reporting. I do want to say though, if you got information about cards, please feel free to report it, because I do try and, I might, if you just tell me, hey, I graded it and it's an 8 now, but I don't have a picture, I probably will say, well, I'd like to have a picture so I can verify that. But I do rely a lot on what other people have to tell me.
Of course. I don't expect you to be collecting these cards to then sell them. Just so you have a picture and you could document the provenance of a card. But so you track every serial number in your RPA tracker.
I do, yeah. And I know some RPAs have different variations of 25 and 5. And well, now it's gotten crazy with you guys pulled one number to 3. Giannis's little brother, right?
Kostas. We call him Baby Giannis.
Baby Giannis.
In 1819, he followed me. Every box I opened, he would be the big hit. It got to the point where like I stopped opening product because I knew I wasn't going to hit anyone else except Kostas.
Well, someone, not that this will happen, I don't want to be that guy. Someone in 2013 was saying that about Giannis.
Yeah.
This guy followed me in every box. And of course they probably got rid of him by now.
So did I. I got rid of Kostas.
I don't blame you.
Who wants this? Yeah.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, he's on the G League of the Lakers, the G League team called South Bay Lakers. He was dropped from the Mavs last year or this year. Well, like before the season started. And the Lakers picked him up and then put him on the G League. I don't think he's played for the Lakers, but I've seen him on the bench for a couple games before the season was postponed.
Okay. So he's close. He is.
He is.
Get a shot.
Yeah. I mean,
I kind of wish I had pulled an RPA now when we're looking at cards later. I don't think I pulled one, but that's all right. I don't really have an awesome one to show you.
I'm sure you do. It's not about. So, I mean, I collect the player for like my PC, but I've branched out to other players, especially in regards to like those cards that I wouldn't be able to afford of my player or players, if you include Michael Jordan. So I do have some cards of like, I think I'm the only person who PCs like Maxi Kleber of the Mavericks. I think he's an amazing defender. I think he should win 6th man of the year.
Well, and
He,
$100 could probably get like the nicest Maxi Kleber you've ever seen, right?
yeah, I have this really gorgeous rookie auto of him that is like literally like you can see brush strokes. It's like a painting. It's from Court Kings, his
Okay.
rookie year. And it's just this gorgeous card. And I actually saw it in another player posted, I think it was on Instagram. Like someone posted their their PC of this card. And I was like, oh my gosh, this year, that card is gorgeous. Who was a rookie that year that I might be able to PC and not pull money away from my main PC to fund my card effort?
Right.
And yeah, so I started collecting Maxi because of that.
I'm thumbing around here because I thought I had a Court Kings box topper. I know that's random. Court Kings used to be such a beautiful product, and it's kind of gone downhill. But oops, let me spin that around. These were the box toppers, like, and this is like canvas.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's nothing special about it. I just kept it because it was kind of cool. But this is Manu Ginobili. Like, this is just such a cool piece. I don't know what it's difficult to store. I don't know what I do with it. I'm not going to hang it up, but just stuff like that is really cool. You know, I'd like to see more different stuff. And I know, you know, if you're into art, like there was so much art themed stuff in Court Kings. It was such a cool product.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I really like Court Kings. It's a like a product on the DL. Like not many people really talk about it in the hobby, it seems, at this moment. So I don't want to talk about it because I don't want more people.
Forget everything we just said. Forget what I just showed you.
Yeah, this whole segment's going to be cut out.
It didn't happen.
Pretty much. Okay, so Kyle, where do you think the hobby is going?
So that actually, my answer is going to kind of link in with the Court King stuff I just showed, or the stuff we didn't just talk about, because a lot of that felt innovative to me. Because you know, it was canvas. There were the level 4 rookies were you know, really tough to pull. They weren't autographed. There wasn't memorabilia in it. They had nameplates in the set though. They pulled a lot of that. A lot of the autographs are now stickers in that set. It's really changed, and I feel like this is going to sound so negative though, but I feel like that's kind of what's happening with some of the current basketball products. And I've talked about history already. We study history because a lot of things happen in cycles. And sometimes, you know, we don't want to repeat all the bad stuff, and we do want to repeat some of the good stuff if possible, or promote, you know, the things that led to the good stuff. A lot of good changes in the past were the result of innovation. And that goes for the hobby. You know, you guys have talked about the rise of the insert card, right? And the scoring kings and the stickers and some of that stuff that came early on and was really important for Michael Jordan cards. And that led to a lot of cool stuff happening in the hobby. So we had innovation that was driving the popularity of the hobby. Now we did have a junk wax era in there as well, but that's because it was so popular. You know, there was also innovation on the court. So like right now, I don't feel like there's a lot of innovation in products, but there's at least excitement, right? There's Zion, there's Luka. There are things that are happening, even if the products aren't as innovative, and some things like Court Kings are kind of reverting. I don't feel like, though, we see a lot of innovation on the product side. However, and this ties into a lot of which you've done, I think we're seeing it with baseball, with Topps, with the Project 2020 series, and you're interviewing those artists, and that's awesome because I wouldn't have access to those people otherwise. I mean, I wouldn't know those people. So this is opening my, and I do collect some baseball, but this is opening my eyes to a whole different place in the hobby. And I think some of the innovation that Panini has tried has not been executed as well. with blockchain and all of that. So unless there's a lot of new exciting players or new exciting products in the basketball hobby, I think a lot of the excitement that we're seeing right now will eventually taper off. Now, I hope as a content creator, I want to keep things fresh and exciting. So I'll do my best to do that. I'd like to see Panini follow suit. You know what? They copy one another on other stuff. Why don't we? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think that it's inevitable at this moment.
Yeah.
That's my prediction, that we're gonna see more Project 2020, more projects or more releases like Project 2020. Last week, one of the cards from Project 2020 sold and brought Topps at least $500,000 for one card.
Is that the Trout?
Yeah, that was the Ben Baller Trout.
Yeah.
And part of that is Ben Baller is from LA. He's LA based. He has a huge following, and you have Trout, who's an LA player. So I'm sure a lot of his followers who don't collect cards hopped on and bought the Trout of Project 2020. But I think part of it also is it seems like almost every new release of Project 2020, like every day during the week, 2 cards are released for 48 hours, and the sales just keep growing. Like they just keep going up and up.
Right.
Granted, like 35,000 cards was an irregular, which is what the print run was on the Trout from Ben Baller. But we're seeing the numbers increase, and I've been tracking that. I've been tracking the cards, the artists, the print runs, and what days they're released and what's released together. Because the Ben Baller Trout sold for a very large number of print run, but it also impacted the card that was released with it that day, since you could buy the 2 for a discounted rate, which is what Topps does. So it's been very interesting, and I've been watching the analytics of that and trying to guess, like, okay, who's releasing a card today? Okay, you see the card, and I'm a huge fan of the art, and I don't collect baseball, but I have purchased.
I was about to ask, I figured it might elicit a "you don't know me" response, but you don't have a single baseball card other than these, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is exactly what Topps wanted.
Yeah.
Right. And I know you guys or you specifically touch on the art aspect, and we've seen like Gene from Arena Design on Cardboard Chronicles. So we as collectors, I think we see the art side of cards, and we see designers as artists. Mm-hmm. But I think people outside of the hobby, not so much. Well, I mean, I tell my parents that I host a sports card podcast, and it's kind of like, oh, I hope that's going well. Like they don't like, they're not immersed in the hobby. They don't understand that.
Yeah.
So it's bringing in an entirely new audience. I agree with your prediction. I think Panini, if they don't pick up on it, that would be a huge lost opportunity.
Yeah.
I want to see every prominent artist variation of Zion's duck face that I possibly can. You know what I need to show off here.
I do. I know exactly what you mean. I was just doing the face. I
had somebody send me, of course, I've got stacks and stacks on my desk. Sorry, I wasn't ready for this one.
You're fine.
Here we go. I do have it. I had a listener who's awesome. He did a Jeff Foster sketch card for me. For those of you that listen to my show, I like Jeff Foster. He was a role player on the Pacers, right? So this showed up in my mailbox, and I'm like, this is absolutely incredible. Shout out Connell Collection. He collects Dwayne Wade and several other players. Super nice guy. Sent me a care package. Includes this Jeff Foster card. So I do have an art card that I meant to show you. So
That's awesome.
yeah, I was, that's one, that never would have came about without the podcast either. Just people connecting with me in that way. So that was really cool. I hope I didn't deviate too much from
No,
our where
not at
we're at
all.
there.
Not at all. I get off topic very easily, so never apologize for that. Yeah, so I to back to the question, I too think Project 2020 is a great moment in the hobby culture, and I really hope that it's setting a new trend. And I know that during my interview with Blake Jameson, he said that Tyson Beck and himself are going to put together like a marketing pitch for Panini.
Oh, wow.
To let them be part of a similar series for basketball. Tyson Beck is a huge basketball fan. And yeah, so I mean, fingers crossed
Yeah.
that happens, because I would buy every card.
So the historian, yeah, I would definitely, like, I haven't bought any of the baseball ones. I need to. I do actually collect some baseball, but there's only so many things I can put money into. But I'm interested to see how Panini would handle it, because they don't have a lot of the hobby history. I mean, they don't have any rookie prior to 2009, really, unless they could use old Hoops rookies. So they have the Hoops history.
Don Russ too, wouldn't they?
They would, but Donruss never really did any standalone basketball. So that would be, so that would be tricky. I mean, we'd have a pretty awesome David Robinson card.
One thing they could do is like design your own rookie card of these players.
Or I mean, who says it has to be rookies? They could take like the LeBron optic that people love. And all right, here's your optic artist version. And I'm sure, anything with LeBron on it, they're just printing money at that point.
I mean, there's so many different avenues they can do, which is really what makes it exciting. They could do a full set, like an artist set, where they just split the 250 players across like 10 artists, and like everyone have fun with your card for the art set this year. And it could be a whole new product that they just released, kind of like Mosaic last year, only on their website. And then distributors will eventually buy it, and card shops will buy it, and that'll then be the only place to get it. But buying it directly from their website, I think, would be most advantageous for themselves.
Right. I hope we're not getting excited about something that doesn't happen. That we can, I mean, that's part of the fun. We can always dream.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, don't take my dreams away from me, Kyle. Which I believe I've told you before.
That's kind of, I guess that's kind of my thing. I didn't mean for it to be, but that's kind of my thing.
Yeah. Stop raining on my parade.
Happy thoughts.
Okay, so moving on to your PC. Can you tell me and show me some of your favorite cards? Because I know it's very difficult to pick one. I wouldn't be able to pick one, to be honest, out of my PC. So
yeah, we had a conversation prior to this where you said, "What's your favorite card?" And that on my end, it didn't go well, because there are so many cards I like. So what I tried to do. First off, I will say my collection doesn't have the focus that it needs, because I just like so much stuff. And that's another side effect of being a content creator is, I don't know if you can hear that. My cat's in the sink right now, and it's just like he's got some pan that he's bashing around. I'm sorry if you can.
I can't hear it.
As a content creator, I study a lot of sets that, maybe I'd overlooked in the past. And then it's like, oh, now I'm going to go buy some. I was doing an episode about Chrome products. And in the middle of writing the script, I bought a superfractor on eBay. And that was a bad idea. Do I regret that purchase? No, but do not write and buy at the same time, right? It just doesn't work out. So my PC, if I had to narrow the focus down, though, it would be 3 things. Pacers, a lot of Pacers. I love my Pacers. I'm not going to bore you with all the details here, but I love my Pacers. It's a huge part of my life. I plan my weeks during the season around Pacers games, and my wife is a trooper. She's all on board with that. So Pacers, NBA Finals, game-worn stuff, and then the third category, I guess you could call it historical stuff. So here, I will start off with this card here, which this is from 2003-2004 Topps Jersey Edition. And this is why, seeing cards on video, although I do need to hold it still so it focuses in. Seeing the shine on that is something that pictures don't always capture. This is significant to me for several reasons. This is my favorite era of Pacers basketball. I've watched other eras. I've been watching them since the early to mid 90s, but I guess this is when I moved in high school. I moved away from Indiana. Watching the Pacers was I was homesick, right? So watching the Pacers was kind of my link back home. And that so happened to coincide with this player that I loved watching named Ron Artest. And we'll talk more about Ron Artest and what he's done later on. But I love patches. We've talked about it earlier. They're all different. They're all little pieces of art. This was one of the first Logo Man sets. This is something that, in 2003, I was in high school. I couldn't afford this, if this were up for sale. So this is something that I always dreamed about. I would save pictures on my computer of cards that I liked. And this is kind of one of those cards that, would typically, a card like this would make it in one of those albums. And I actually found that hard drive recently. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. But these cards are one of one. And every time I post one of these, people are like, "Oh, it's fake." I'm trying to get a close up because the Logo Man literally, I'm gonna do everyone's gonna say, "Oh, he's mishandling that card." It's mine.
It's yours.
Okay. It's my card, right? The Logo Man juts out of the card.
Yeah.
So people are like, "Oh, that's so fake," because there were fakes of these. Because look, they had a jersey version where the border, it was a square, like right here, and you can see the gold border stops. It's like they're just like, let's just extend that window a little bit without extending the border and slap a Logo Man on top that's literally sitting on top of the card. I love it. It reminds me of that time. I think I like the Logo Man sticking out because it's like a piece of the game here, and it's not safely secured in the card. It's a piece that is for me to examine as I wish. Great looking card, great picture. The Logo Man fits perfect with that picture. If you go on the back, a nice little write-up. It was from a product called Topps Jersey Edition, so they had the outline of a jersey. All these little things matter. His name, his number. He wore a lot of different numbers in his career. 23 is the number I have the fondest memories of him wearing, and he wore 3 different numbers with the Pacers, and he wore one of those twice, so he was always changing. So to get a Logo Man of him wearing 23 was really cool, and then it's got that 101 stamp on the back. So
that's a cool card.
Yeah, that's it. I need one of Brian's stickers. That's a cool card sticker.
We'll send you. I'll send you one.
I need some of those. So that, like I said, that era is really my favorite. That's when patches started to become more of a normal thing. I'm really big into patches. This next card, I'll show it off here first. The design of this card is not great. It's kind of the outside, the red, it's kind of dumb. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But what is the focus of this card supposed to be? The patch, right? And that's what they've done. They've got the patch prominently displayed there. This was from a product called Topps Big Game. that was only out for 2 years. And in my mind, this is kind of the precursor to Immaculate with these jumbo patches like this. And this is one of my idols growing up, Reggie Miller. Everyone we saw in the Bulls documentary, everyone wants to be like Mike. I didn't. I wanted to be like Reggie Miller. And growing up in Indiana, every kid had that champion number 31 jersey. And every kid, to this day, I can shoot 3-pointers and I can barely dribble with my left hand, because it wasn't about fundamentals for us. It was about shooting like Reggie Miller. And that's kind of always been my thing. And so another cool thing about this card, I'm going to take this one out too, is they show you the actual jersey. This is something Donruss used to do with baseball and football. They show you the actual jersey that was used to make this card. So like this letter A came off the front of this jersey. Which is not, I don't know if it's focusing in there, but
I can see it.
This, so that's what they use to create this patch card. So there's just a lot of good stuff that really, I really like about this. Though it's the 101 looks so fake though. There are some things early on in some of this top stuff that just looks goofy, but it tells you they acquired it from NBA properties, and so there's some provenance to the card. Another story about that card real quick. I was not a big fan of Instagram, and more so just because I wasn't familiar with it. And a week after I got on Instagram, someone messaged me and said, I have a card that I think you'll like. And it was that card. I sealed the deal, and I've been like pro Instagram ever since. I like it. And I would recommend like everyone get on Instagram, right, for cards, even if you just make a card account. Because it's going to sound horrible. We don't want to see your kids. We don't want to see your plants. We don't want to see your pets. We want to see your cards.
And your card stores.
Yes. Yeah. So card
That's
stores.
That's also my jam.
Yeah.
I've been going through withdrawal since quarantine.
Yeah, we haven't had the curbside card store tour. Or did you guys ever figure out the proper way? Tour. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I still say it wrong. It's okay.
Say it how you want to. It's your show. So this next card here is from 2004. So this was right before Fleer went bankrupt. And a lot of people, knowing the Pacers and Pistons history, would say, nice card, but that's disgusting. Why are you holding that? This card, we speak about innovation, was incredible because it's called 5-on-5. And this card takes me back in time because my favorite player that I showed earlier, Ron Artest, had a bad night. And this is while I was player collecting him. He had a bad night. He went to the stands, punched some fans, started a brawl with, I don't know, tens of thousands of people. He had a bad day, right? So he got suspended the rest of the year. It's hard to collect a player when they stop making cards of him because he's suspended. So this is a card that came out after that. And I had a lot of bad feelings towards the Pistons. And kind of as I get older, if something that elicits a strong emotion, bad or good, is nostalgic. I'm actually very nostalgic about this Pistons team. But this card is called 5-on-5. So this is something that we really hadn't seen before. There's a jersey variation of this that's numbered to 199. This is numbered to 10. This is one of those cards I had saved a picture on my computer. I thought I'd never see it again, right? There's 5 Pistons patches on the front. Very solid lineup of Pistons players here. That side doesn't matter, except that I had to compete with all the Rasheed Wallace and Chauncey Billups collectors for it. This is the side that matters. This was a fierce rivalry at the time. This is a piece of history. You've got Reggie Miller, Jamal Tinsley, Austin Crozier, Jonathan Bender, David Harrison, who I actually interviewed him on my podcast. We talked about the brawl. So that's just another component that makes that card really cool for me. But yeah, this there are the three of the better Pacers players are missing from this card because they punched fans. So it's like it tells the history of that whole incident and kind of that season for me, and a changing point in my life, I guess, moving from Indiana to Florida. So that's why that card is meaningful to me, and it was innovative. Really cool looking card.
That's a gorgeous card.
It's and it cost me. I'll say that, but it was one of those. I'm like, I'm not losing this. There's 10 copies. Probably 6 or 7 of them are in player collections. I'm never seeing this card again, so I got it. Sorry, I'm very long-winded. I can cut some of these out if I need to. This one though is a beautiful card. This is a Victor Oladipo. It's not a Pacers card technically, even though he's a Pacers player now. So basically, I was bummed out about the Pacers 2016-2017 season because of a player that I will not name that I don't like. He did not want to be a Pacer anymore. He was a very good player. I forget him. And we were supposed to win like 20 games the next season. So we traded for this Victor Oladipo guy. We traded for Sabonis, who I've lobbied for the House of Jordans to be called the House of Sabonis. But we traded for this guy, and 2017 was the most fun Pacers season I've probably watched in like 15 years. And just being able to share, I live about 10 minutes from my parents still. I watch games with my dad still. Being able to watch that season with him when we were expecting so many disappointing things, it was very meaningful. So I wanted to grab a Victor Oladipo rookie that appealed to me. And one of my favorite parallels was only around for a very short time. Well, actually 1 year. These were retail exclusive to Walmart in 2013. And it's, some of the newer blues, like the 2017, are ugly. They look horrible. The blue doesn't pop. The blue on this, the camera is not doing it justice here. I have a picture of it where it's just like, it will catch your eye and you will stop what you're doing. Or if you don't, I will make you look at it again. But this is an incredible looking card of a guy that really gave me a lot of good memories. And so when he goes down and he gets hurt, and I literally got sick to my stomach, and I felt like such a goober telling people that, but they don't understand kind of what all goes behind it, and watching games with your dad and kind of having that joy taken from you, even though we can still watch together and enjoy it. They don't get that aspect. But anyway, I'm rambling. Cards. So the next portion would be kind of cards that are historic. I'm going to show 2 here real quick. We'll speed it up. I like these cards. This was from a product called Innovation. So it actually was very innovative. And these are game-dated patches. So this is the stat line from the specific game that this patch is from. We don't see a lot of this. This is a player that I know you're very fond of, LeBron James.
Yes.
The people have different opinions about his time with the Heat, but man, that's an incredible patch. And he did great things with the Heat, and I wanted a way to remember that. That's historically significant to me. And then I wanted a nice game dated Durant patch as well. So we'll go through that a little quicker. Other significant pieces here real quick. This card is bent in half multiple ways. This corner is awful. You know what? Let me take this out too. I'm going to handle it because I own it. So this, I've talked on my show about collecting the 1972 top set. There's a lot going on in this card. There were some licensing issues, so his jersey's backwards. You can see Chamberlain on the front instead of Lakers. They didn't feel like they had the rights to that at the time. It was kind of in transition, so they might actually have had it in 72, but some of the photographers didn't know. So, obviously I wasn't there when Wilt signed this, but I do have the JSA sticker. It is certified, and that's part of my 72 autograph collection. I think Wilt is just such an incredible part of NBA history. I love that. I love that the card's bent in half because someone has taken this card somewhere and, it's got history. I don't know what it is. I can imagine. I don't know what it is, but I love that about it. All right. And if I don't give good pictures of these, let me know. This is an incredible looking card. I tried to go for cards that were visually really appealing. That's kind of what I go for too, visually historical. The reason why this card is so important is because Artis Gilmore was on the Kentucky Colonels of the American Basketball Association. And that was a league that merged with the NBA in the mid-70s. And we don't have, I would say the ABA history is not always represented as much as it should be. I'm saying that because the Pacers won 3 ABA championships. All those little tags that are on the back of jerseys for winning championships. We don't have one. I say we. I'm on the roster. We don't have one. The NBA doesn't really recognize that, but the Pacers were loaded with Hall of Famers. So this is their main rival, the Kentucky Colonels. We don't have a lot of ABA game-worn stuff. Panini has done a pretty good job of what they could get, and that is because when the Colonels folded, they were not part of the merger. The Kentucky Colonels folded, and their equipment manager, part of his settlement was, well, you can have all the jerseys and all this memorabilia that we have just kind of laying around, which at the time, some people thought was not a big deal. He was smart. His name was Pinky Gardner. He's written some books. He grabbed all that memorabilia. A lot of it's hit the secondary market. Panini was able to get this jersey. This is a Colonels jersey. This is an ABA worn patch and a good one too. Actually, I have 2 copies of this card, but this is the better looking patch. And I can go back and I can match this patch on the jersey. So I thought that was really cool. It's just a really cool piece of history. All
That's
right,
awesome.
two more. I promise. 2 more if we have time.
You're fine.
So I mentioned I love NBA Finals game-worn stuff, and I haven't shown any yet. So this falls under the history portion of it. This is, for those of you that have been watching it's not really a Michael Jordan documentary. It's the Bulls documentary. They talked a lot about the Bad Boys. Well, and you can watch there's a Bad Boys documentary too, but they kind of made big progress when they made a trade for Mark Aguirre. He was one of those key pieces to them really making that jump that they needed to. This jersey is from the 1989 NBA Finals. And I know there are people out there that would say, oh my God, why would someone cut that up? Hey, that's a good question. But I wouldn't have a piece of it if they hadn't. So I like that. I like the fact that they cut that up. And there was a seller that had 3 of these, and he would not sell me one of them. And I finally just caved and bought all 3 because it's like I have to have this piece of history.
He wanted to keep the set together.
Yeah, I do. I only grabbed one of them, but somebody asked me now I am that guy. Somebody asked me the other day, well, would you sell one of them? After I told that same story, no, I think I'm going to keep them together for right now. And maybe that'll change along the line, and maybe I'll find somebody that, really appreciates this card. But for right now, I think they look really cool together. So that's NBA Finals game worn. That's actually labeled as, they've labeled it on here. They've mentioned it on the back of the card. Not every card does that, which leads to my final one. This is a Kobe Bryant Panini Crusade Quest memorabilia patch. This is the prime version. It's numbered to 10. After the unfortunate situation with Kobe, I wanted to add a nice Kobe card to my collection. I do more patches than autographs, so I wanted a patch and I wanted something that was significant. And I kind of justified it by saying, well, I've got an NBA Finals collection, and I found this card. A lot of people might not recognize this, but that is a piece of the NBA Finals trophy. I'll have to look it up. I think it's 2009 because the trophies look different in the different years, but that's from 2009. I've got pictures of him wearing warm-ups from that series with this patch. I can't match it to one of the specific games from the series, but I've got pictures from every game of him wearing that. So I do have a picture. I just don't know which one of him wearing this. So I felt like that was a really meaningful piece, and just a great looking card as well. Something unique. I wanted something different. So.
Yeah, I really like the Crusade set. So I talked about that before on House of Jordans. It's now in Chronicles.
Yeah.
And like I buy Chronicles to rip. Sometimes it's the only thing you can afford. Just to see.
Well, who knows this year?
I know, seriously.
You can't find it now.
Yeah, I might not be able to afford anything anymore. But I like seeing the old cards and how they've redesigned them for the current year. So I really enjoy ripping Chronicles because of that. But I haven't ripped Wax in so long.
No, if I were to, like, all of these cards that I showed you, if I were to try and pull those, I wouldn't be able to afford what I'm doing. So
yeah,
I'm thankful for the people that do rip it, because I can buy the singles later on. But that's my approach. Is definitely I've done group breaks where it's like, well, maybe I could, there's a lot of Pacers patches in this product. Maybe I could get the one that I want. No, I need to just buy the one that I want later on. It's just a better approach for me.
I completely agree. I'm still a degenerate pack ripper.
I know, it's fun.
Opening cards. But at this moment, the cost of the box versus the cost of a single card, I can't justify ripping Wax for Chase.
I mean, there's an experience cost, but that's a very quick experience, though. But yeah, I try to justify it by saying, well, the experience was fun, but it's like 20 minutes max.
Yeah. I try and justify it by saying, like, well, we don't go to the movies.
Right.
We don't go out to eat. So, like, this is our entertainment. If we were to do those things, especially we're in Los Angeles. So to go to the movies in Los Angeles is like $40 for 2 tickets. That's not including like popcorn. It's just to sit in a theater. So you add up those times that people go to the movies and out to dinner, and you think like, okay, but at the end of the day, I'd rather have the single card that I want than the Chase.
You can go to the movies, or option B, you can have the highest level Maxi Kleber cards. That's an easy choice for me. There's always Netflix. I'll see those movies later.
Yeah. For free, if you have it.
For free, right?
Your cable subscription. So, yeah. I completely agree. Thank you for sharing your some of your favorite cards in your PC. They're beautiful.
Thank you. I don't get to do that on my show.
Yeah, because, I love hearing the backstory of the cards too. And then seeing them obviously gives me the warm fuzzies. So speaking of cards in your PC, does your wife collect cards?
That's a good question. So that ties in with the experience costs. So people have listened to the show before know that I talk about myself and Mrs. Wax Museum chasing cards at Walmart or wherever. We do the shiny chase, whatever you want to call it. She likes shiny cards. And it took me a while to get her onto Optic. She, I don't think, was as impressed with Mosaic. We did just recently find some of that. She loves Prism. And she loves ripping packs. So that's something that, I do use that as part of the experience cost because we do that together. I also factor, people say like, why would you waste all that gas driving around and going to stores? And it's like, we do that together. It's kind of like a treasure hunt. It's one way that she engages in my hobby that is probably more that she can tolerate a little better than me just showing her like, my Ron Artest cards. So she is very supportive of that aspect of it. She enjoys ripping them. She usually gets the better pulls. I know in 2018, she pulled all of our Luca stuff. Except for, when we ripped together. There might have been a few things I ripped by myself where I know.
Wait, that's like, that's horrific to me. You ripped by yourself? I once got in trouble.
It is, but let me tell you a story. I came home one day from a long day of work. There was an opened blaster on my desk with open packs and cards put back in the packs. Now, how do you think all of that came to be? I wasn't the one that opened those. She said, I couldn't wait, but I wanted you to have the same experience. Spoiler alert, it was not the same experience.
Oh, that's funny.
But yeah, so she pulled the Luca Pink Ice, which is gone. I did keep the Luca base card, the base rookie, Prism rookie that she pulled. And that one, I've even labeled it like we pulled this one because I got cards everywhere. We pulled this one. That way I know I want to keep it because it's one that we pulled. If I ever get another one, I don't confuse them. It won't even be like, I'm not even going to keep the one that's centered better. It's like, I just want the one that we pulled because that's kind of a story that we can share. So she is supportive of it. I will give her that.
Okay. And what does she think about your historic collection?
Probably not as impressed. She's more into she doesn't collect anything. She's more into the opening stuff. Usually she opens it and then gives it to me. So I mean, just in general, I collect and save everything. Like I'm looking over here in the room. I have a Tupperware that I washed out that had like buffalo dip in it the other day because I thought like I can store something in that later. I don't know what, but I'm going to keep it for the time being, where she's like, she wouldn't let me store it in the kitchen because she's like, that is ridiculous. So she doesn't really collect anything. I collect everything. So it's kind of, different styles, but we both enjoy opening. So we have that going for us. It works well.
Awesome. Is there anything you want to ask me or talk about that we haven't touched on?
We have talked about a lot of stuff. And I appreciate you putting up with me going on and on about my cards.
Not at all, Kyle. Not at all.
So I can't think of anything else. I know the minute that I shut this microphone off, I will. And I will have to send you those questions, but it won't have the same effect then.
It's okay. We'll just we'll save them up and then we'll have a repeat.
A follow-up. I like it.
Yeah. We'll schedule a follow-up. Well, thank you so much, Kyle. Make sure, if you don't already, which I don't know why you don't, you check out Wax Museum Podcast. And again, thanks to you and Mrs. Wax Museum for letting me have a good chunk of your day today to talk cards.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to come on.
Of course. All right, guys. Thanks for listening, and make sure to tune in next time.